wish I stayed isolated.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't read the news. But with all of the information that's coming out now, it's been nice to kind of shed a light on,
Yeah.
What's been going on, because people, I'm sure, have been watching my life and going, what is going on? But I've been dealing with so much darkness and tragedy and trauma and all of this, so it's nice to finally get it out there,
Yeah. I imagine that it's difficult to do that, but there's like a sense that it's all gonna be worth it at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe in 1 or 2 years you're gonna look back at this time and you're gonna see that it was a really hard time, but you were glad you made those decisions. Or no?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think that when you're in it, it's difficult because you're battling, like, what am I doing? But when you kind of get a bird's eye view and step back from it, and I think it'll be a good thing.
Do you have any like decisions that you made in the last 5 or 10 years that you regret, or you wish that you would made them sooner?
I mean, obviously there's things that have occurred in my life that are regretful. But I tend to look back at them as lessons, as just things that you learn from and make it easier to move forward and get past things and use them as learning experiences,
Do you have any other like hobbies or like vessels where you like get rid of the stress? Like, do you play soccer or something like that helps you deal with that?
Running, running and exercising helps a lot, and Legos.
And Legos, yeah. Do you run a lot?
I try to run. I don't have much time right now just because I'm so busy doing so much stuff. But yeah, I try to get in the gym as much as I can. Yeah.
I love running as well. Actually, a friend of mine came to visit here like a couple of weeks ago, and he was training for a marathon, and I did his training with him.
Yeah.
And we run like 21K.
Oh my gosh.
In a Saturday, and that actually got me excited, and I wanna run a marathon now.
Yeah, I have a friend who does marathon running
Yeah.
too, and he's been trying to get me out. He's like, come train with me. I'm like, bro, you run far. Like,
yeah, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
But you get like,
I see you play soccer. I see on social media you're pretty good.
I don't play that good. I used to tell myself that I was good at soccer, but then I started this league and I started playing like with professional players, and I realized that I really suck. But yeah, I like running. Running has this element. When you get past like a couple of miles, you get like this sense of high, like a runner's high, and it's really addictive. I really crave that feeling, like, in a daily basis. I ran like yesterday, and I felt really good, and right now I need to rest, but I want to have that feeling again.
Yeah. It's really good to get all of that stuff.
Yeah.
It releases a lot of stuff, your emotions and chemicals and things in your body that need to like
and I
wake
think
up.
It's also really useful when you have like an obsessive personality, which I do, and I think you do too, in a way.
Very, very much so.
It helps you like to use that obsessiveness in a productive way, or in a helpful way, right?
Yep, definitely. I'm the same way. I have like tunnel vision when it comes to things, and I catastrophize, or I hyper focus on things, and my mind just starts to go, starts to spiral and spin. And it's nice to just like get outside and run, or get on a treadmill, or get in the gym and like get all of that released.
And it's also a good way to like break the creative block, in a sense, no?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you feel stuck, or you're like trying to solve a problem that's not really that important in the full context of a song, of an album, and that helps.
Or just in life, just like personal things that are going on in your life, and when you do things like that, it does make you go, oh, I'm making this issue or situation much bigger than it is, or hyper focusing on it too much, and it's really not that big of a deal.
That has happened to you lately? Like you feel like you've been stuck like in a glass of water, or sometimes you're like too close to the trees that you forget about the forest, no?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. You don't pull back and see it all, for in context. You're kind of just dealing with it right there as it's happening, and And yeah, it can get very daunting and stressful, for sure.
If you could give advice to the Drake, like maybe a year ago, like what have you learned in this year?
Well, I think one of the big things that I've learned, especially through what I've been discussing lately, is that, and with, going to rehab and is that you're not alone in, I think that that's a lot of what, at least what I dealt with growing up and through my life, is that I felt so alone in everything that was happening, and that no one would understand me, and my experience was unique. And through this process, I've learned that you don't have to go through it alone, and there are other people with your experiences, and it's really helpful to know that you don't have to do it by yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a really important eureka moment, realizing that your problems are problems that many people can understand and empathize, because it breaks down your sense of individuality. And actually, I saw a documentary about a couple of years ago about this guy who was a philosopher, that he was dealing with death. Like he used to write books about death. And the philosopher recently lost his wife. He was like 85, 84 years old, and he was really mourning her death. And I remember that he said this quote, that her absence was a presence, which for me was a really powerful quote. And the conclusion that this guy made at the end of his life, because he eventually passed out, was that for him what gave him peace was that he broke his sense of individuality, and getting to deal with death was understanding that you're part of this bigger system, and this independent identity is just an illusion.
Right.
We're just part of a really big organism. There's this great series in Netflix called Our Universe, which is narrated by Morgan Freeman, which is amazing. And you start to realize that you are part of a really big organism, and that can scare you, but it also can give you peace.
I was just going to say,
because you're always alive, you're always there, and if you break that individuality, which is hard because our ego doesn't let us do that, it can give you a sense of relief, and it's a really effective way to deal with death. And
I think that's really makes sense, of pulling out and realizing, like, this isn't all happening to you, it's happening to everything, and you're part of a bigger, like you say, organism, and everybody has their troubles and their tribulations and their trials, and everybody's going through something. And you tend to, when something's happening to you, look at other people and say, like, oh, why isn't my life like theirs, or why is this happening to me and not them? And you don't realize what's going on inside, or what's going on in their personal life, and that it's happening all around you, to everyone. And there is a peace that comes with that.
Yeah, and there's also like this kind of human instinct that when you see someone deal with like dark emotions, you want to help them. And I have a good friend of mine who's a musician, that he says he writes like really dark songs, and he says this quote that happiness doesn't need company, but sadness does.
Yeah.
So when you see somebody struggling, or when you're experimenting those dark feelings that make you feel more alone, those feelings have actually the most potential of connecting you with other people. And that's the big irony of all that you think you're really alone, but that's really what makes us all suffer. Like, we all deal with similar struggles in a way, right?
Yeah. And that's I've learned so big, been a big thing that I've learned through this whole process is, feeling like I was just so all alone in all of this happening my whole life. It's just been so eye-opening to see that you speak up, you reach out, and there are so many people with similar experiences, and you're like we're all connected in a bigger way, and we're not struggling and dealing with this, or we don't have to struggle and deal with all of this stuff just all alone locked in our rooms.